Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the District House. We have some new friends in the audience, so I just want to shout you out and say thanks for being here. The District House is a multidimensional event, and twice a month I have the blessing to sit alongside a psychedelic pioneer and get to hear more about their voice and perspective on psychedelic work. So tonight, I'm so happy to be here with Joshua. He is a friend, and for those who don't know, he's also a body worker and tenant upstairs here at Loto Studios. So thank you, Joshua, for being here at the District House.
I'm so stoked to be here.
Awesome. So tonight we have something special. Him and I are going to drop in just for a short interview, and then he has an amazing slide presentation on his layered topic, Tarot, Timothy Leary, touch and transcendence. And then he's going to lead a touch practice. And then at the very end of the night, we're going to have a small group opportunity to practice some tarot. So as your questions come up throughout the night, save them for our audience Q&A. And for now, I'm going to ask Joshua to share a little bit more about his introduction to tarot, because what stood out to me the most about his bio that I read online was his gypsy lineage. So that's what I want to tune into.
Okay. Hey, I'm so stoked to be here. Hi. My gypsy lineage. So my grandmother was, who grew up in England, was one of 12 children. In her family, and she told these amazing stories about, growing up in the war era of England and fighting over food at the table. And her mother grew up as a bargee, is what they called them in England. And a bargee was somebody who lived on a barge in the Thames River. And the way that they made their money was that they would on the barge start up the Thames River, upriver, and they would get wool from the sheep farmers. And then they would float down the Thames River to London. And in London, they would trade their wool for spices or other hard goods. And they would have donkeys on either side of the Thames River, pull with ropes the barge back up the river. And when they got back to the North Country, they would then trade the spices for the wool again. And the way she told the story is that her mother read tarot cards, and that's where the tradition in my family came from. My grandma, when we would have dinner around the dinner table, it was a typical after-dinner activity for grandma to pull out the tarot cards and to read tarot cards to the kids in the family. And so I was exposed to it all throughout my childhood, and I never really thought that much of it until I was like a teenager. And then I started to realize that nobody else that I knew had that experience in their family at all. And then to me, it then became, this magical blessing that I had had in my upbringing, that I got to experience that over and over. And my grandma would really do it up. She was hilarious. She would actually put the scarf around her head, and she would light a candle. She would, burn something to clear the cards. She would have the whole ceremony around it. And it's funny, too, because the way I've always understood it is that in order to read tarot, you need to be given a tarot deck by somebody. And so when my grandma died about 16 years ago. And it was amazing. She was really the glue that held our whole family together. I remember as a kid, we used to have these big family gatherings. 30 people would be over, and people from all parts of the family. And then at a certain point, it stopped happening, and it really didn't even dawn on me until then that it was my grandma who was the glue that held it all together. And ever since then, and still up to now, that we don't do that anymore. Nobody can get it together. Nobody has that kind of like magnetism to pull all that together. And she was an amazing woman. She would had all these opinions about everything that were wrong. I mean, so many of them were wrong. I mean, she was so opinionated about everything. And she really taught me, from a really young age, that you don't have to agree with somebody in order to love them completely. which I think is a really powerful lesson that I learned. And I realized going through life that it's unique, not completely unique, but I mean, so many people that I know don't seem to have that ability. And it's a really wonderful ability to have, because it allows you to go through life and appreciate everybody and understand where they're coming from, that we're all coming from this unique place. But when she died, she had told me, as she was, getting sick, that I could have her tarot deck. And when she died, all of her stuff was with my grandpa. And my grandpa's he's dead now too, but he's this really funny old guy. He lived till he was 96 years old. And he would, even when he was in his old age, he would go out and take a 2-mile walk. He's in his 90s. He would go take a 2-mile walk out through Carpinteria. And I would bump into him. And he was a hoarder. He didn't want to let go of anything. And so he claimed for years that he didn't know where my grandma's tarot deck was. And it wasn't until he died, and I went to my mom and I was like, Grandma said I could have that tarot deck. And my mom went and looked through all of his stuff and then got her tarot deck. And so that's my grandma's tarot deck that I inherited from her. And I'm really careful about when I use it, because I understand that tarot decks hold energy. And I never pull that one out and use it unless I really, really fucking want to know, and it always gives it to me super, super straight. And it's something that I've come to understand about tarot recently. I keep learning more and more about it. And what I've really come to understand recently is that tarot isn't really, it can tell you the future, but what it's telling you is a possible future. It's telling you, it's capable of giving you a glimpse into many potential futures. And as it gives you a glimpse into the potential future, it's a lot like people talk about timeline shifting, right? Is that a popular term to use right now? So you have many possible futures. And what it's going to tell you is what aspects of your own personality or your own being do you need to look at and to potentially change or focus on or not focus on in order to either bring about that potential timeline, to use the popular term, or to not bring about that potential timeline. And so it's this incredibly powerful tool for self-introspection. Yeah. So anyway, thinking about you, Grandma. It's funny, she's actually constantly in my life. And it's a bizarre experience. Yeah.
I love how you describe realizing that no one else was having that experience. Yeah. My grandma would have freaked out if she knew what your grandma was up to.
Yeah, my family's bizarre on a lot of levels, actually. Yeah.
That's so special. So I want to shift gears and tune into this theme of reinvention. And I understand that topic is alive for you in your life. And I want to hear more about how you use that word to represent this time that you're in. And then introduce to us the 3-part structure that you use to represent reinvention.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I consider myself extremely lucky to be a person that is okay with reinvention. I meet some people every once in a while who are very stuck in where they are. And I know that feeling of being very, very stuck in where I've been. But when I see, who can you think of? Madonna is a great example. It's people who are capable of reinventing themselves are fucking amazing. It's an incredible thing to be able to do. And the process of alchemy, of taking whatever difficult situation that you're in or whatever's happened to you that isn't what you wanted, or maybe even it was what you wanted, but to take that and to take that energy and to be able to take that and transform it into the next thing is, I think, something that everybody is doing all the time, but to be conscious of it, to want to do it, and to look at it as something that is happening for you instead of something that's happening to you is a powerful place to be in. And so as I've gotten older, I've realized there's actually a structure to it. And the structure is experience, integration, and then transmission. And this is the way it works. And it's actually the same as saying the Holy Spirit, right? You say like the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. It's the same thing, but it's experience, integration, transmission, and it's a structure that's been with us forever. And it's the structure by which we integrate our own experience and then become something new. I don't know. That's the best I can put it. I probably can.
Yeah.
Say it any better than that.
Thank you. That's excellent. And I imagine through your presentation, there will be touches on that trifecta as well.
We're going to go back to that.
Yeah, cool. So we're going to keep it short and sweet with our interview tonight to give ample space for your slides. But before we close out, I do want to ask you a few final rapid fire questions. And this is our Change Your Lens series. I select a handful of these questions to ask every guest. So I know you've seen a lot of the District House interviews before, so you may know what's coming. I'll bring them in a random order. Is there a psychedelic experience that was transformative for you that you'd like to speak to now?
Oh my God, so many of them.
What's the first one that comes to mind?
The first one that comes to mind is like taking 2 hits of liquid acid. I mean, Isla Vista, it's like, 1994, and I wander up the beach underneath Campus Point by myself, and I wind up laying on this rock on the end of Campus Point and just tripping by myself, looking up into the sky. And like, I don't even know how to put it into words in a way that might be palatable to everybody. But yeah. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. My next question for you is if you could sit in a psychedelic experience or ceremony with anybody, dead or alive, who would be there and what psychedelics would you use?
Oh my God, what a great question. I didn't remember that one getting asked before, but that's an amazing one. I guess the first person that came to my mind is my grandma, actually, because I guess I was just talking about her, but I would love to drop acid with my grandma. She was hilarious in one respect, is that she like had this complete insistence that like, even though she read tarot cards and talked about spiritual stuff all the time, she completely was just like such this realist, and God didn't exist and none of that spiritual crap, and religion was bullshit. And she refused to even consider it, which was kind of amazing. Like when she was dying, I was like, well, like I'm positive that I'm about to be able to talk with your spirit as soon as you're gone. And like, I know that to be a fact. And so like, it's funny, you don't believe any of that shit. So I'd love to drop acid with my grandma. That'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. And that sets me up perfectly for my final question. Do you believe in said afterlife? And do you feel that your psychedelic experiences have informed your perception of that?
Yeah. I think that's one of the most powerful things about psychedelics, right? Is like, I'm positive after all my psychedelic experiences that we are just the burning tip of the spear of an energetic structure that goes through the whole universe, and that we're only just a conscious piece of it that's here right now. And I'm actually looking forward to dying and experiencing whatever the other part is, because, it's something much bigger than anything that I can understand right now with my limited architecture that I'm working with in the moment. So yeah, I have, it's weird. I actually have no fear of death. My fear is not being able to finish my job that I've been given here. That's my fear. If I have some fear around that, it's not about the death. So yeah. But like typical afterlife, like the way I understood it, going to Universalist church when I was a kid, or afterlife the way it's in a cartoon or something. No, that's so simplistic. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, I think when you deeply embody that there is no end, it really shifts how you receive the fullness of your life. And I see that in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hop to the audience so I get to see all your slides too. And I look forward to what you'll bring tonight.
And thank you. I'm disappointed you didn't ask me whether this was a simulation.
Do you want to respond to that?
I was going to say a simulation of what?
That's always my question.
So I'm so fucking stoked to be here. I've been coming to these things. When I came down and looked at a room to do massage in, whatever it was 8 months ago, and I met Jacob for the first time, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. I had heard of this place, and I had this like vague idea that I should come down here and check out what was going on, but I hadn't. And I've just been so incredibly blessed to have come in contact with this, and with all these people that I've met here, and I've felt like it's really enriched my life so much in the last 8 months, and that I didn't realize how much that I was looking for something like this until I found it. And so I just really like thank you to all of you, and to you, Jacob. Like I'm so happy that I found this. It's been such an amazing blessing. And so I just want to ask a couple things first, right? To get started. And I want to ask you guys some questions. So like, Neptune came out of retrograde this morning at about 4 a.m. Anybody feel anything different? Like some like difficulty you were having yesterday? Anything release for anybody? A little bit, maybe? You're aware of that? Okay. What about the solar geomagnetic storm that has been happening for the last 2.5 days? Anybody feel that? Yeah. Like I had a headache for like a whole day. Like it's a real thing, right? So I want to be really clear that like I'm not above anybody in any of this stuff that I'm talking about. Right? Like, and I don't feel that about myself, that I'm above anybody in anything that I'm talking about or discussing. And I have this friend, Christian Beamish. I've written a couple books. I'm working on a third one. And Christian's a really good writer. And he was talking to me about writing a few years ago. And he said something to me that was so beautiful and insightful. And he said that like, when you're writing a story, like if you want to really write the best story, you want to reach somebody, you want to really be authentic, like you cannot write from above things. Is that you need to write from inside things, from within things. And I just thought like, I go back to that in my head so frequently when I'm speaking to people or when I'm writing, when I'm designing anything. So that's what's so beautiful, I think, about psychedelics, right? Is like, so psychedelics give you this view from above it, right? Like you take psychedelics and you're transported to this place where sometimes you have these realizations, you have this vision of like what's possible or what it means or where you are or, what the beauty of it is. And for a second, you're at the top of the mountain and you're like, you can see the view, right? Like here, like, and then it wears off and you go back to like being your normal self. And sometimes there's this like frustration with like, how do I translate that into my life, But I think that the first piece of translating into your life really is like, wow, you saw the view. Like you saw the fucking view. Like, fuck yeah. Like, and then you have this memory of the view or something like MDMA. It's like you go to this place where you feel universal love. And it's like a couple weeks later, you might be at the gas station and being like really fucking pissed off with that person in front of you who won't pull away from the pump. And you're like, oh, well, what happened to that universal love? But at least you remember that feeling of what universal love was. So you have something to reflect back on in that moment. And you go like, oh, I see how far off the mark I am right in this moment. Like that's a wonderful gift. So there's suspension of disbelief. This is where I want to start with. So as you listen to me talk tonight, I know that it's possible with our brains to find holes in what I'm saying and to look for what doesn't make sense. But I'm just going to ask you and invite you to suspend your disbelief because it's a beautiful place to be in. And instead of looking for holes, look for like your own way in. Look for like a what if this is true instead of looking for like an inconsistency or the way maybe it doesn't work. I think the basis of the alchemical process is the ability to look at everything that's happening to you as an opportunity to grow, right? So, like, I have this friend on Facebook, and she gets so much attention constantly on Facebook, and she's constantly complaining about, like, the things that happened to her. Her boyfriend broke up with her. Her car broke down. It's all so awful, and she gets so much attention this way, and that's awesome, for her. Whatever, that's what she's doing. But it's so amazing to be able to be in this other place, and to look at those things as like the universe is happening for me and not to me, I broke my arm. Well, wow, this is a fucking amazing opportunity to sit down and finish the book that I've been working on. And if you can look at things that are happening to you in that way as they happen, then you have this ability to go into creator mode and to get yourself out of victim mode. And the more that we can stay in creator mode, the more it is possible for us to co-create with the universe in this process of reinvention and become the people that we really want to be, instead of staying stuck as the person who got broken up with, or has the broken down car, and that becomes your identity. Who's read Garage Sale by Ken Kesey? Fucking nobody?
See you, sir.
Garage Sale? One person. Yeah, I will. What about, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Everybody's seen that movie at least, right? Okay. What about, who knows about the Tower Experiment at Millbrook? Okay, so I am such a junkie for psychedelic lore. Like, I literally have spent so much time, like, reading about and looking at and learning about all this stuff. There's such an incredible record of the bizarre things people have gone through and written that have become this body of work that's the psychedelic lore, and it's just amazing. So, like the Tower Experiment in Millbrook was this amazing thing. Timothy Leary took his grad students, and he decided that the experiment he really wanted to run, there was a fire tower on the Millbrook estate. And the place where he did all of his experiments for Harvard University was this estate in upstate New York. And it was hundreds of acres that had a forest on it and a huge, huge house. And they had a fire lookout tower. And so he decided that for a period of, I think it was 30 days, he wanted to have somebody peaking on LSD up on that tower at all times. And so they all volunteered, and they all rotated who was going to go up on the tower and who was going to be peaking on LSD. I don't know what that proves, I'm like, I have no idea what he was trying to do, but he actually did that. Like, that's incredibly bizarre that he actually did that and talked a bunch of other people into doing it, and they all actually did that. And I find that beautiful. So has anybody here read Bringers of the Dawn? Oh my God. Okay, Bringers of the Dawn. Look it up. Bringers of the Dawn. Every single person here should read that. It was on audiobook. The woman who wrote it channeled the message in the early 70s at some point. She actually reads the book to you, and it feels like she's channeling the message to you as she's reading it. And it's about human evolution. And she talks in that book about, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. You guys should read it. But it is about human evolution, and it's fascinating. Okay, so who here has taken psychedelics in the last 6 months? All right. Fuck yeah. How about in the last month? Yeah, okay. Oh, I like that. It makes me really happy. I like being the speaker up here and getting to ask questions to everybody like that. So who here has done solo psychedelic trips? By yourself? Yeah. Fuck yeah. How about MDMA? Anybody done MDMA by themselves? Yeah. Who's done TCD? Anybody done TCD? Yeah. Hands way up for Jacob. I love that. Okay, rad. Okay, that makes me really happy. Thanks for answering those questions. So I don't know. So there's this moment when we run pattern making software in our brains, right? And that's we're constantly noticing patterns and deciphering them, and then we're constantly making new patterns. And that's pretty much what we do. Some of us are really, really good at it. I had this friend in college that like literally could say like two huge numbers and he would multiply them for you like that, like in his head. But there is this beautiful thing that happens, and we were all taught this logic and critical thinking when we go to school, but there's this beautiful thing that we can do, and school really does its best to try to breed it, at least school in the version that I went to, does its best to try to breed it out of us. But there's this beautiful thing that we have the ability to do, that's suspension of disbelief, where we allow something to be miraculous. And when magic becomes possible, when our rational mind discovers this gap in what it thinks can logically exist, and we have that moment, like that's a beautiful moment. That's like, the best example is in sports, I think. It's the easiest thing to explain. It's like you see the guy drop in on a wave at Pipeline, and sometimes the guy drops in on a wave at Pipeline, and it's like, he's got the line on it. It's a perfect wave. You can tell he's in control the whole time, and he drops in behind the curtain and he gets barreled. And when he comes out, you're like, oh, that's beautiful. And that's amazing. But then there's another time when like the wave is so violent and it just like pitches out, and he's just on his toes as he drops in, and the board comes away from his feet and he barely lands it, and he pulls up into the pit and the whole thing implodes. And when you're actually at Pipeline, like you can actually feel the ground shake when those 20-foot waves break, when you're on the beach. And it goes so violent, and he disappears from sight, and the whole thing implodes on itself, and you're positive that he didn't fucking make the wave. And he comes shooting out the end, and you're like, whew, oh man. And you have that little moment where something that your logical mind can't make sense of actually happened in front of your eyes. And it's like, that's the little window into witnessing a miracle. And there's bigger and bigger moments of that, but I think that's the easiest way to go into it. And it can happen when you're watching a football game too. So why are we here, right? I remember tripping on LSD with my friend Colin a long time ago, and we were coming back from, we had walked into the woods. We were coming back to our campsite. And as we're coming down, and Colin turns to me and he goes, Josh, my whole life, like I've been wishing that the magical pink elephants from the Dumbo cartoon really existed. And I just realized, like, I'm the pink elephant. And it was like, yeah, like that feeling of like, oh, the magic exists, and it's actually like, I'm magical. I'm the one that creates that. So we run this pattern making software, but like, why are we actually here? Like, what are we doing here as human beings? Like, what's the point? So here's an idea. Here's my idea, right? Is that the point of being here is actually to alchemize our existence. That's the whole point, is that we are actually here to evolve as people. And I don't know, like you could put it in whatever terms you want, becoming a better person, whatever terms you want to put it in, or whatever terms you can put it in. But it's to take whatever trauma that we experience in life, whatever experience we have, and we experience it and we integrate it, and then we get to like transmit that and alchemize that into something better. And it's not just that the giraffe evolved because like the ones that could reach higher in the tree had a better chance of getting food. It's the giraffe evolved because he was reaching up into the tree to get food. It's a purposeful thing, and the conscious decision to keep doing it is a part of it. It's not just that there's genes and there's a mutation, and the mutation then has a better chance of keeping going. I think that is a really simplistic way to look at it, and not what's really happening here. We're deciding. And so, recently I was listening to this psychedelic luminary on YouTube, and he was talking. He's amazing because he was talking about like having, his 215 psychedelic trips, and he took 400 micrograms each time, and he had it all written down. And I was on one side, I was just really impressed with the guy that he had actually written it all down and keeping track of it. I was like, fuck, Like, that's bizarre. But he said this other totally bizarre thing, and he said that after all these psychedelic trips, he had realized that believing, that you should never believe in anything, that believing in something was, you should be very wary of believing in something. And I found myself really disagreeing with him on a really basic level. And I wanted to put it in completely different words, is that after all those psychedelic trips, like, what I realized is that believing in something is actually a really fun game, and that, like, choosing to believe in things is powerful, and why not? And choosing to believe in something is like an amazing gift. So why would we deny ourselves of that? So something fun that I choose to believe in is, I like how string theory says there's 11 dimensions. I think that's fascinating. I know science is wrong about almost everything in the long run, so it'll probably be wrong about that too. But 11 dimensions sounds really good to me. And I love the fact that there's 3 dimensions and then plus time. And so that's 4. And so if you take away 4 from 11, then you get 7. So that means there's 7 other dimensions that are kind of like, where are they? You know, and according to string theory, apparently they're wrapped up like super, super small, like inside of the electrons that are in atoms. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me, you know, like, so the way to get to other dimensions is to let go of being solid, you know, to let go of being a thing and to become just a vibration. And when you're just a vibration, you can like slip your way into the other dimension, and there you are. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? But it's fun to believe in shit like that. And why not, right? We just have the choice to go and believe in some shit. So I had hippie parents. After grandma, I had some hippie parents. I grew up in Venice Beach. And it was like, dad tells stories about tripping on acid in the living room, and mom made tie-dyed curtains. And I grew up in this environment where there was like weed left out on the dining room table, which honestly, like, well, it is what it is. It kind of sucked in a way, to be honest, right? And then we moved from there, we moved to Laurel Canyon. I thought living in LA was like the armpit of the universe, and I couldn't wait to get out. But looking back on it, I realized that like we lived down the street from like Graham Nash and like Frank Zappa. And I was like, are you kidding me? It's like the epicenter of like the coolest music that ever existed practically. And it was happening up the street from me. But yeah, that was where I grew up. And then in college, I got introduced to psychedelic drugs and took a lot of them. And it's something that I think about a lot, is like the process of addiction. And I have my own experience with addiction, my own struggles with addiction. But you know, even like if you ever get into the place where you're taking LSD every day, that's also really not good for you. Like, I've definitely gotten myself into places where I've taken psychedelics too much, and you become very ungrounded. It's very hard to like actually then get the things done that you need to get done in order to kind of keep going in life and make it all work out. So a lot of times in my mind, I classify drugs into like, there's good drugs and there's bad drugs, but you take anything too far and it just doesn't make sense for you anymore. And I've definitely been to that place with psychedelics too. So after college, I spent 5 years as a wilderness tour guide. A wilderness tour guide. I took people all over Mexico, all over the Western United States, and all over Canada, climbing mountains, going river rafting, stuff like that. 5 years on the road. And I felt kind of empty, actually, strangely enough. Like at the end of that experience, it was like, oh, I don't live anywhere. I don't have any friends. I traveled a lot. Like I saw a lot of shit. It was amazing. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And after that, I had a daughter, and I got a job, and I worked in Hollywood for 5 years. Started PAing for big films and worked my way up. I did prop mastering. It was fascinating. I remember this day, and we're shooting that movie Vanilla Sky, and Vanilla Sky is actually a pretty good movie. And there's this scene where Tom comes into his house, and he's really rich in the film, and he's greeted by these people, and they hand him presents. And so I'm doing props, and we have this table in the back. And we know they're like, we have 4 presents. And so we have backups. We're not stupid, right? We made like 4 or 5 backups of each of the presents, you know? So we have this table in the back. We have 20 presents wrapped, and they're ready to get into Tom Cruise's hands. And so for him to start the scene, and they say action, and he walks into the room, And he gets given the first gift and he just tears it open, like right there. And we hadn't thought about that. Like we thought he was just going to like hold him for some reason. And we're like, fuck, we got to wrap some more gifts. And the director's like, okay, go again. And we're like, okay, fuck. And they do it. And then like, before we even have one gift wrapped, he's like, go again. And we're like wrapping presents back there as fast as we can. And he shot that scene for like 4 hours or 5 hours, like going over and over and over. And we had like 5 people around this table behind the sounds, behind the set on the soundstage. And we are wrapping presents as fast as we fucking can. And then handing them off to Tom Cruise. And it was like sweat pouring down our faces. Certain parts of it were amazing working in LA, but I eventually realized that it was like, there are other people who dreamt their whole lives about doing this, and I'm definitely not one of them. I really want to go surfing, and I didn't really like being on a soundstage 14 hours a day. It's just amazing that people actually want to do that. I remember being with my friend Jonathan, and Jonathan, we had all taken a bunch of psychedelics before, but Jonathan hadn't. He was a friend from high school, and we hadn't been in touch in a little while, and he came to visit. And we all dropped a whole bunch of mushrooms, like a whole bunch. And at one point during the night, Jonathan peaks on mushrooms. And as he's just coming down off his peak on mushrooms, he has this like epiphany experience, and he runs to the phone and he calls his mom. And he tells his mom, like, I'm right there in the kitchen witnessing this. And he tells his mom that all of a sudden he understands all that shit they were talking about in the synagogue all those years. It was hilarious. He wanted to call his mom. And I have no idea how his mom actually reacted to that, because I didn't hear her voice. But that moment of like complete understanding, or that moment of glimpse of something that you previously didn't understand, and then all of a sudden it makes sense all in one moment. Like I remember having this teacher in high school that tried to tell me that like words were thoughts, that thoughts are words. And I don't know, you can classify it different ways: feelings, thoughts, visions. I don't know what you want to call it. But like we've all had that moment, right? Especially on psychedelics, where you understand something all at once. And the word Gestalt is a German word, and I think that it means pattern, literally. Jonathan has this moment, right? And it's Gestalt about God, or his experience that he's had in synagogue, where they've talked about God his whole childhood, and he didn't know what they were talking about until he did mushrooms. And then there's this word, apophenia, right? Apophenia means the erroneous patterns and meanings that you hallucinate, right? That's what it means. But a lot of times those patterns are meaningful. The pareidolia is another word. It means seeing patterns, specifically faces, right? I think on mushrooms, we've all experienced this. You see faces and things. So this brings us back to belief, right? What's the difference? What's the difference between Jonathan's experience of all of a sudden understanding what they talk about in synagogue in a Gestalt moment, and then, me seeing faces in some painting that I look at that maybe aren't there, or maybe are there, or faces in this rock wall of the wall of Yosemite when I'm camping there and I've dropped acid or mushrooms. Like, what's the difference between those things? So I brought a totem. This is my totem for the night, since it's the holidays. Rushing nesting dolls. Anybody know the word for these? How do you say it? Matryoshka. Thank you. And I think this is the way it works, is that there's a structure of things, and it keeps going in both directions forever. There's no end to it. And this part fits in that part, and there's another one that fits out here, and the ones go on the inside, and they go on forever. They never stop. And I think that's what we're experiencing here. And the way it works is there's experience, integration, and transmission. And within this 3 structure, in each parts of these 3, there's 7 stages. And I didn't think of this. I got it from a book called The Game of Life that Timothy Leary wrote. So there's this Alex Gray painting that I saw the other day. Anybody follow Alex Gray on social media? Oh my God. I would love to see some of his stuff in person. And the painting that I saw was this new one he had just posted, and it has like growing out of this person's third eye is a person, and then growing out of that person's third eye is a person, and then growing out of that person's third eye is a person. And it goes on and on and on up into the sky. And I thought that was such a beautiful visual for what I'm trying to express right now. So we're ascending. That's this process of reinvention. We ascend as spiritual beings and become the next thing. And the way to do it is to use belief as a tool. So you can believe whatever you want. You might as well believe something that's going to create the situation that you want to have. So back in 1801, there's this guy, Thomas Young, and he does this experiment called the double slit experiment. I don't know if I'm cognizant enough to really explain the whole thing to you perfectly, but I wrote down the explanation up here. And basically what it does is he like fires a single photon through two slits on a piece of paper. The result of the experience is that single photon both acts as a wave and a particle. Depending on which answer you look for. And this is the basis of quantum mechanics, or one of the basic experiments in quantum mechanics, where science, has proven that things change. Like you get a different answer depending on what you look for, right? So me saying like, oh, decide what you want to believe, use belief as a tool, isn't just something that like I'm deciding to say or I'm deciding to believe. Like there's actual scientific basis for the fact that depending on how you look at things, you're going to get different answers. And I think that it's possible all the way across the board to do that. So what you get, if you follow that, far enough into yourself, is what you realize is that two opposing things actually then can be true at the same time. And the beautiful part about allowing that to be the truth is it really like takes you off the hook of like having to be right ever about anything. Like two opposing things can be true at the same time. Well, what a fucking beautiful thing. That means I never ever have to be in the position of judgment ever in my whole life, And like, it sucks to be in the position of judgment. It's not a very powerful position to be in at all. It kind of feels powerful right in the moment. But what I've been saying to myself a lot lately is less judging, more kissing. If I ever find myself in the moment judging something, try to remind myself, less judging, more kissing, less judging, more kissing. So now we can use this tool of belief as a tool for personal reinvention, right? And what we get to do is continually ask the question, who am I, right? And then we don't have to be attached to whatever the answer is, because the answer can be whatever we want it to be. And this is how it works. So we have like whatever story that we have, whatever frame of reference, basically, that we're looking at things through in order to arrive at whatever belief that we want, whatever we're thinking about anything. And we have things that go into it. The beliefs that we have, the rules that exist, the laws that exist, and the stories we tell ourselves, and that makes our frame of reference. And you change any of those things and you get a new frame of reference. And you can do it to yourself whenever you want. And as we each go through our lives, we're constantly going through ups and downs of emotions, of experience, of health. And from each place, we look at a different part of our arc, and it looks different from each place. Anybody remember George Carlin, one of the greatest comedians of all time? So I listened to this interview with George Carlin a long time ago, and he said the most amazing thing. they said, well, can you talk about your artistic process? And he goes, well, basically my artistic process is that I carry a little notebook around in my back pocket all the time. And anytime I think of something funny, I write it down. And then when I get on stage, I just read it back to you. And that's it. That was it. That's his artistic process. And it produced the most genius comedy. You know, there's like, he's in that like top echelon of greatest comics of all time. It was insightful. It made you question yourself. It made you laugh till you wanted to pee on yourself. And then on the other end of it, like there's this guy, Paul Fritz. And Paul Fritz, he did this thing and he called it Gestalt therapy in the hot tubs at Esalen in the 1960s. And his psychotherapy technique, what it consisted of is people got on LSD, and then he would essentially criticize them on LSD until they had a mini breakdown. And he criticized them to the point, you know, finding holes in their personalities until they had a little mini breakdown. And at that moment, they would have a Gestalt experience, a realization about themselves that propelled them on to the next place. And so this process of like taking the painful things that we have inside of us and turning them into gold, this process of alchemy is what it's all about. So in 1979, Timothy Leary was a master of reinvention, right? So he's like this, Harvard professor. He winds up running experiments on psilocybin and LSD. He gets fired from Harvard. A couple of years later, he becomes this countercultural icon. A couple of years later, he gets brought up on charges of marijuana possession. He goes all the way to Supreme Court. He beats them. He then winds up a couple years after that actually getting arrested on something else. I don't even know what he got arrested for, to be honest. He goes to jail. He has the Weather Underground smuggle him tools into jail. He escapes jail. He literally like crawls across a roof and shimmies down a pole and climbs a barbed wire fence and all this stuff. Actually escapes jail. Goes on the as a fugitive, travels around the world as a fugitive before he's finally like tracked down in like Algeria or something by the Secret Service. And then does go to jail, gets out of jail, and becomes like one of the first luminaries going around talking about cyberspace. Among many, many other things. I could talk a long time about Timothy Leary, but in 1979, he writes this book. And it's called The Game of Life. And it's not in print anymore, but you can find it on the internet if you look for it. And in this book, what he does is he breaks down reality into what I just explained to you. It's like, it's these three phases. And then within these three phases, each of them has 7 stages. And what he does is he takes the tarot, and you can take anything basically, and you can use this framework to break it down. He takes the tarot and he uses this framework to break down the tarot. So what I understand the tarot to be is like a framework by which you can use it as a tool to alchemize your own experience and ascend, get to that higher place within yourself where you find the next place that you need to go to. Tarot is as old as the Egyptians, right? It's they find references to it in the hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt. And so here's the way Timothy Leary laid it out, is he says, terrestrial is the experience. He calls it post-larval is the integration. And then stellar is the transmission and expansion phase. And his postulation, and also the woman that wrote Bringers of the Dawn, coincidentally, not coincidentally at all, is this idea that this experience we're having as human beings is actually like, and I think that's where like the term hologram or the term simulation gets useful, is like that it's an experience that beings from the Pleiades or beings from other places in the universe have come here in order to have a physical experience, in order to grow, and in order to evolve. I think that language fails us at moments like this, but I think that's maybe the best language we can put to it. The way Barbara describes it in Bringers of the Dawn is that we are evolving towards having more helixes in our DNA. I like the way that sounds. She says there's dormant things in our DNA. We're learning to use them. So each stage of the tarot, these 8 stages, are laid out into 7 parts. And not coincidentally, so is our energetic structure in our body. So we have an energetic structure in our body that is also laid out into 7 parts. We have the root chakra, I am, right? Here it's I create. Here is I expand. This is I love. Here is I speak the world into existence. Here's I understand. And here is I am one with everything, my connection. And then your 8th one is transcendence. But just like in music, the 8th one is also the bottom one. So the 8th is the octave of the first one. So the transcendence is I am all over again. Now, not coincidentally, we also have 7 main areas of glands in our body. Here they are. I won't explain them to you because you can read them, and we're going to run out of time if I explain them all. In each area of our glands, that corresponds to an energetic area, which also corresponds to a thought pattern or series of thought patterns that we have. And we, at any time, have the ability to believe or control the way we look at these things in order to drive our energy and our experience. So I'm going to talk about myself in order to demonstrate how we can look at these cycles in our own lives. So I went through an experience many years of my life, and I was probably from my late 20s when I started working in LA, in Hollywood, and then going all the way until about 7 years ago. I went through repeated cycles of addiction to many different substances. Marijuana was a lot of it. Alcohol was a lot of it. I did speed for a while. A whole bunch of different things. And the way that I eventually got myself out of it was through trying repeatedly over and over and over again. Eventually it stuck. Eventually I discovered something within myself that allowed me to decide that it wasn't interesting to do it anymore. And I really did just lose interest in continuing doing that. The way I did it personally was by following a meditation method. Other people go to AA, whatever works is fine. But so that was my experience, right? And then what I found after I went through that experience, and just like Russian nesting dolls, right? There are this 3-part and 7-part structure gets bigger and also smaller. So you can take your day and you can divide it up like this. You could take your entire life and divide it up like this. You can take your week at work and divide it up like this. You can take your last relationship and divide it up like this. But it's a really useful framework for looking at everything through. So I went through that experience of addiction. What you find, and I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but what you find if you've been in addiction for a long time is that when you stop using whatever substance you were using, you realize that all the rest of life, all the things that you were not able to deal with, that you were trying to get away from in your life, those things still exist. And at that point, you actually need to learn to deal with all those things without the substance. And that is the integration. So that's integration. Once I had gone through that for a couple of years, 3 years, it dawned on me one day that I actually had something to say about this experience, right? That I had learned something. And at that point, it was actually my job to explain that, to transmit that, to put it out there into the world as something. And so I wrote a book. But that doesn't just end there. Your life keeps going, right? And so I just recently had another experience, of going through relationships with different people. And then those relationships, I learned about myself and about boundaries, about self-worth, right? And then being able to integrate the experience of the relationship into my life and to grow through that is the integration part. And then when I got through that and had been through it enough, I got to a phase where it was like, okay, now I need to share this with the world. I need to create something out of it. And so by going through those 3 phases over and over, I'm able to continue growing in life. And yeah, you could go through all that and not put it into some kind of framework, but it's extremely useful to put it into a framework and have a way to look at it so that it has meaning and makes sense. What I'd really like to do is these are the phases here. This is how Timothy Leary broke down the tarot. These are all the major arcana cards in the tarot deck. And he broke them down into how they actually break down into the chakra system. So they fit into the chakra system. So what I'd really love to do at this point is I would like to give some gifts away. So is there anybody here who owns a tarot deck? So not a lot of people. Okay, well, I wish that I had bought 20 of them, but I couldn't afford 20 of them. So I'd like to give you some tarot decks. So who doesn't have one?
Do you wrap those too?
Yes, I am a professional gift wrapper.
Right, along with those 500 other packages for Tom Cruise.
And then, is there anybody in here who feels like they might actually read my book? Yeah? It's yours. Okay, at this point, I'd love to do a musical and touch exercise. Oh, I have one more. And I had Becca come and bring her sound bowls, and she's going to play some music for us. So here's the idea. In a few minutes, so we're going to do a little touch exercise right now, a little visualization and then a touch exercise. And then I'm going to break everybody into groups, and I want the people who just got tarot cards, you're going to be the tarot readers. And I want you to do a tarot reading for at least one other person. And here's the idea, is that when you do the tarot reading, right, you lay the cards out with that idea. We're going to do a 3-card spread, and the idea is you lay the cards out. The cards, when you lay them out, are experience, integration, transmission. That's what you're doing with the cards. When you look up the meanings of the cards, it's very easy with just a cell phone to be like, the Fool meaning. And whatever comes up, it's going to give you a meaning. You can take it or leave it. But the frame to look at it through is experience, integration, transmission. And that's the way you look at the tarot cards. That's the way you look at their meaning and what it relates to. And when you say, like, you're going to do a tarot reading, you're going to be like, well, what's the issue that you're dealing with, right? Now, when that person sees the tarot reading come down, they have an issue. The tarot cards are giving you a window into what could be, but what aspect of your personality can you look at in order to bring that about or avoid it? Okay, so I want everybody to get super comfortable where they are and close their eyes. And allow yourself to take a few really deep breaths. Just allow yourself to breathe all the way into your belly and then all the way back out. And there's no wrong way to do it. There's no wrong way. All the ways you're doing it are right. And as you're breathing, I'd like for you to imagine that you're sitting alone in the middle of a big, vast field. It's flat and it stretches away from you in every direction, flat. And the sky is completely, perfectly clear. It just stretches away from you endlessly in every direction. And you feel completely at home and relaxed, sitting in the middle of this big, endless field. Now, as you breathe, you begin to notice that above you, in the sky above you, is this golden light. And it floats above you, filling the sky above you with golden light. And on your next inhale, you begin to bring some of that golden light towards the top of your head. It's really gentle. It doesn't come all at once. And with the rhythm of your breathing, slowly, some of that golden light gets brought down. It begins to touch the top of your head. And you begin to breathe it inside your body. And you feel it come down into your forehead. And as you exhale, you feel it fill your forehead and spill out, spilling out from your body. And on your next inhale, it comes further into your body, down into your throat. And it fills your throat, and on your next exhale, it spills out of your mouth because your head is full of this golden light. Now you begin to feel that this golden light above your head has taken on some form. You don't have to see it, you can feel it. The golden light has a structure to it. It's almost like runes or letters of a language that you do not understand. And you continue to breathe it in out of the sky into your head. And on the next breath, it comes further into your body, into your heart. And you can feel it filling up your heart. And then on the next breath, further into your body, into the center of your chest, into your solar plexus. And then on your next inhale, you pull it even further into your stomach. And then on your next breath, you pull it all the way down into your tailbone. And you feel yourself full of this golden light. Okay, now that you're full of golden light, I would like you to adjust where you're sitting, just enough that you're able to reach over to the next person and put your hand on their back. Is it possible to do that? Yeah, most of you have done that. You're good, Hannah. Okay, now I want you to experience this. You're full of golden light. You can feel the energy of it in your body. And you can feel this person's hand on you. And so, as you breathe in, imagine this person's hand is like a ground wire on your electrical system. And I want you to ground your energy into that person's hand that's on your back. Try it a few times. Take a really, really deep breath. And as you exhale, push the energy out of your body down that person's hand. Okay, now everybody take the hand away. And I want you to do the exact same thing. You're full of golden light. And as you take a really deep breath, I want you to push the energy down through your body and out of your body through your feet. Yeah, take 3 or 4 breaths, and each time that you exhale, push the energy out of your body through your feet. Okay, now who got presents? Open your presents. And I think each person that got a tarot deck should have like 4 people or 3 people. I think if I counted right, yeah. 3 people. So groups of 4 and 1 person in each group has that tarot deck. I think you'll have to move around.
Super absoluteness. Thank you so much.
So you're going to have to decide among you who's going to get the tarot reading first, but 1 person in each group is going to get a tarot reading. And it's really useful when you go to a tarot reading, you go with an issue or an idea. Like, it doesn't have to be super specific, but it's nice. It could be super specific, but it's nice if you at least have a concept you're going into it with. And then the tarot reader is going to allow whoever the person is to pick 3 cards.
He said,
Holders.
Oh, that's totally true. Yeah. I do that all the time at home. Yeah. 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 Hannah had a really good suggestion just now. So a lot of times what I do is I just look up the meaning of the card, in Google search or wherever. But it is possible to take a picture of your tarot reading and to ask GPT to interpret it for you. And you can actually even ask Chat to interpret it through a certain lens. So you could even ask Chat, interpret it through the lens of experience, integration, and transmission. Yeah. I always find that Chat says fascinating things. Yeah. Well, I've been using it for quite a long time. Yeah. 3 cards, yeah.
Have the issue or bull or pictures.
So you said that
It's experience, integration, transmission. So in a typical tarot reading, they would call that past, present, and future.
Now. And you look back on the 3-part slide. Okay, what? In court? Yeah. Experience, integration, transmission. Or so even other.
this one's so we worked it.
Alright, well, you want to do coxy or sorry, one. Research you have your issue will it be by some of the scar serpents. Sorry, you all sorry. Does so. Here, look, go do pixie first.
"Did nothing dish but
These
steps.
face you.
Was
in a typical tarot reading, it would be past, present, and future, but we're doing experience, integration, transmission. Yeah, you got to be like you have an issue, like yeah. For example, I've just been through a terrible breakup. Where can I redirect my energy? Yeah.
Sure. This is
When I in this at that it's mapper. It says that
your experiences. Orange, cheese craze. Or in reverse, use a bit of fun, pictures, with clarity. It's just and my interpreter if you color, there is yourself at the end of my years. Though it's your power, there's a your vegetarian. If I eat, she treats me, she peace. Easy fish.